now the topic the topic for today's webinar is really around trade, and you can discuss this in many different ways, but at least from where we sit, we think that there are quite a number of barriers for replacing the actual physical paper document in trade. So it doesn't sort of do the trick just to get around one barrier. You need to get around them all. And first of all, you have the barrier around regulation, and this is very much what this is all about. That you actually need regulation and laws that actually allows you to act in the digital space instead of on paper. So we are all very familiar with the MLTR and the adoption that's ongoing across the globe. But it really doesn't stop there. You also need to be conscious about the fact that there are industry practices, right? There are ways of doing things that people are very used to and comfortable with, and that participants have built their their working processes around these industry practices. I'll get back to that in a minute also. And then we have interoperability. So if you decide on going digital, so then you need to also be conscious about how do you actually make sure that you can be digital with everyone at all points. So that's also a key thing that you need to manage and that you need to solve. And the last thing is at least as we see it, it's about data integrity, because on the one hand you have all the benefits you get when you're sharing data, right? Because then you can use this data for many different purposes. But on the other hand, you need to be conscious about your business secrets, and you also need to be conscious about the laws and regulations that are around this, and especially for us in Europe is the GDPR around personal data that is very strict and very descriptive. So again, it doesn't really do the trick to have a solution that solves one of the barriers. You need to solve them all, because otherwise we don't think that the road to replacing paper in trade is really open. Let me see if I can go to my yes. So sorry about this. so just a few words on regulation. When we crafted our solution, which we actually called Trace Original, I'll come back to that in a minute. At the same time, when this solution was ready and available, the United Nations came out with the law, which is called, as we know, the Model Law on Electronic Transferable Records. And I think it's quite important to call out what this suggested model law actually is all about. And the key thing in this is really the fact that any country or jurisdiction shouldn't deny an electronic record or an electronic document legal effect, validity, or enforceability on the sole ground that it is in electronic form. So this model law doesn't give you the whole answer on what you actually have to do. It's more about that as long as you provide something that is actually doing what is already required by any law that is currently in place, you are good to go. So in the example of the UK, the Bills of Exchange Act, as an example from 1884, that doesn't go away. It's still there. So you still have to comply with all the requirements in the old laws that are currently in force. And at least from our point of view, this is quite a clever way of paving the way for digitalization, because then you don't have to change everything. You just have to be able to accept something that's in electronic
unstable
form. Ulf, can you mute? We think this is very important, and then again, sort of the MLETR is extremely important for the possibility of getting rid of paper in global trade. I would also like to mention a few words on Pamela's webinar last week and the Digital Standards Initiative. We think that the ICC has really taken this on in a very good way, and the piece of work that is going on in the Digital Standards Initiative is amazing, because it actually gives the industry sort of the standards, and not sort of on a general level, but for each and every sort of document that is used in global trade. So this is an excellent guidance for the industry, and it will sort of make sure that this work on digitalization will be smooth, and people will be able to agree on data standards, even if they don't necessarily know each other up front. There will be one source that you can go to, and you can agree on the standard. It doesn't stop there, because these standards also makes it possible not only to have the documents in electronic form, but also to be able to pick out the data points that actually resides in these documents. So very good, and looking into the future, it also gives the possibility of starting to interact through APIs with different parties, and not necessarily just deal with documents. So very important and very key. However, when you look at sort of the future here, we think it's quite important to take a little step back, and the reason for that is that we all want to get rid of the papers, but the paper is not sort of just a physical thing. It's also a standard. And the paper document is the best standard that we all know for now, and also it's extremely interoperable, because Brian, you can create any type of paper document, and you can write things on it, and you can send it to me or to Engine, and we will immediately know what it is and what's written on it. So it's a very convenient standard. So what we have been all about is just to try to bring this standard into the digital space. So our solution, which we call Trace Original, is just a digital sheet of paper. It's nothing more, nothing less. But it is actually doing what a paper document is doing in the physical world. Our Trace Original solution is actually doing exactly this in the digital space, and just again coming back to the Digital Standards Initiative and the standards for electronic trade documents. For us, this is a very good match, because you can actually put any type of standards into our documents, and I will explain this in a little bit more detail. But before I do that, when we talk about interoperability and we talk about the physical document, so Brian, you can create a paper document and you can send it to anyone. Our solution works exactly the same way. So our solution is just important to the one creating a particular document, right? So the only one that needs to have any dealings with us or sort of use our solution is the party that creates the document. And it might be, a bill of lading for a carrier. It might be the bank creating a promissory note or a bank guarantee. It might be a company creating a warehouse receipt or any type of document, the only party that needs to have anything to do with us is the creator. So once the document has been created, it can flow freely between any party. The only requirement for any downstream user is that they need access to the internet and they need a computer. So there are no rule books, there are no fees, there are no nothing around this, and you can still receive and manage original documents that you actually possess and control. So this is very important, because if it wouldn't have been this way, we would just have created another closed platform only for members. So this is very important. Secondly, we see sort of digitization as an evolution. So when it comes to the document, first we had paper, then we had sort of the normal standard PDFs, and now we are taking sort of PDFs into the new world, making sure that these PDFs can be actual original documents and that they can also contain standards and structures. So we're adding to this evolution. And sort of at the end of this whole thing, maybe we will get into a situation whereby everyone is communicating between themselves through APIs. But let's see, we are just providing a way of getting to that point while not sort of forgetting about sort of how things worked previously and making sure that everyone can be on board. I just would like to say a few things about what our sort of digital papers can do, and this really ties back into the requirements and in the model law or in the Electronic Trade Documents Act in the UK. So if you read that really carefully, you need to be conscious of the fact that you need sort of to stay quite true to the concept of a document, and this is actually what we can do. So our solution is based on a document, and also that you actually write something onto these documents. And usually when we talk about documents with great value, someone has to make a promise, right? So we are very agnostic when it comes to electronic signatures. So you can put any type of electronic signatures into our documents. It could be DocuSign, Adobe Sign. We have our own solution. And thereby you get the identity and the intent of the party making the promise. Very, very important. Additionally, you need to cater for everything around singularity, and that is around control and possession. And obviously, for us working in trade, being able to control and possess your document of title, a bill of lading, for instance, is paramount, because otherwise you are not sort of in possession of the actual asset. Additionally, you need to be able to freely transfer and endorse these type of documents. So if you're sitting on a closed platform, you cannot do that, because then it would require anyone to come onto the platform. In our case, if you have the control and possession of the single original, you can also hand over this original to anyone, any downstream users. A few other things, you need to be able to cater for change of medium, going from paper to digital and digital and back again. With our solutions, you can do that, but it's not something that we recommend. So if you want to go digital, I think you should go digital the whole way, because it's more convenient for everyone, and it's also, this is really what we want. You need additionally to be able to provide a reliable method, so everyone can verify that this particular record is true and correct, and this is why modern technology is very good, because you can do it 1,000 times better than you can actually do on paper. So very important, and this is what we can do. So these are all the requirements in the MLETR or any law that has been sort of incorporated or adopted in accordance with the MLETR, as is the case for the Electronic Trade Documents Act. Additionally, if you move into the digital space, you get a lot of other benefits. You get something that is actually very transparent, and you get the full audit trail. You also get something that is fully protected against manipulation and fraud. And then again, I'm coming back to this point. You can actually have a standard in connection to the actual document. So I'm not going to dwell on this a lot, but our solution consists of three components, and obviously the document is the key one. This is where all the data resides. This is where the promise is made. And in addition to this actual document, there are two other components. The first one is the key pair, and the key pair is how you control possession and how you manage possession. So anyone in possession of the latest version of the document with the correspondent private key is the one that can manage the document and do things to it. We also have a component which is a DLT solution. And the only thing that our DLT solution is that it's sort of keeping track of the versions of the document and which private key actually controls the latest version. So there is no business data, there is nothing stored on our ledger, only sort of the evidence of the existence of the document and which private key actually control them. So just to make this a little bit clearer, so our documents have basically 5 layers, and we think that this is quite key in today's world, especially when you look at traditional trade, because today people are using PDFs, they are sort of scanning them and doing all sorts of things with them, and then you're just on the surface layer of a document when you OCR the document. Our solution provides you with the capability not only to have a human readable PDF, but you can also have a standard sitting behind. And again, you can incorporate all of the ESI standards into our documents depending on which type you use. You can also have attachments. So if you have one document and you would like to have attachments, other type of documents, pictures, whatever you would like, you can add that, and it becomes an integrated part. And then again, as I mentioned previously, you can also add electronic signatures and even electronic seal. So you will get the identity and the intent of the person or the entity making the promise. And then the 5th layer is really the technology we provide to making sure that you have one controllable digital record, and also at any point in time it's only the one in possession of the original that sort of can continue working on the document, adding new signatures, endorsements, or attachments to the document. So actually you get everything you want. You get the human readable PDF that you recognize, so it will look the same as it has done previously. You can chuck a standard into it, so the document will know what data points it, so you can fully machine read it and process it, and also be sure that the receiver can manage it digitally. You can put attachments to it, so if you have a bill of lading, you might want to put a packing list behind, so you can do that. And you can also use whatever type of electronic signatures you are used to or you're obliged to use. And you get the full, again, certainty of the integrity and the originality of the document. So you get many things, and we think that you actually get what you want. So just a quick comment on what this actually means typically for software providers in this space. So the challenge for them is now to not managing data on behalf of their customers. They will also be challenged with managing digital assets. And that's a new thing for them, but we're making good progress with many of them because again, this is quite new. How do we actually incorporate and make sure that you can manage your original bill of lading in your letter of credit process? Because previously it always sat outside as a paper. now you're getting it into your workflow. Also, our solution is quite agnostic. So again, it's just a solution for a digital sheet of paper. So you can use our solution for any type of documents. Obviously, the best use cases are for negotiable instruments and documents of title, because these are really the tricky ones, but that you can use them for any type of documents. We are also quite active in other industries, providing school diplomas or certificates or other types of documents. So we're quite agnostic. It's up to the user who decides what kind of document they want to create. Also, again, quite a number of ESG benefits going down this route. So obviously, you will have the possibility to get rid of paper. But if you use our solution for bills of exchange, for instance, sort of the financing practice, especially for SMEs in sort of unknown markets, will become much easier, because you will just create one simple recognized record of death using our solution. And I think many on the call, they will know that working with paper bills of exchange is really, really cumbersome, and that has sort of made a lot of SMEs not being able to tap into financing possibilities that are available and also supported by ECAs, etc. So we think with our solution, we have sort of we are having something that actually works with the new regulations that are sort of in accordance with the MLETR. You can still use your systems and your processes and everything that you already have installed, so that doesn't change. The only difference is that you will have something that is digital instead on paper. The interoperability piece is very, very important. And again, our solution works the same way as paper, so the documents can be managed and exchanged between any parties. And sort of the last part is really around data integrity. So since we're very, very true to the concept of the document, so any business data or personal data, it only resides in the actual document. You're not sharing your data with someone else. You are just sharing your data the same way as you do on paper. So all the processes and rules you have around managing data sitting on paper will apply for these type of documents. So very convenient in that sense. Just a few things. So we're quite happy that we did the first sort of transaction under the new UK Electronic Trade Documents Act with Lloyds Banking Group. So we've been working with them for quite some time. Quite excited about that. So we showcase that not only can the law change, but also that there is technology available really to tap into this opportunity and get all the benefits. We are also very much involved in the UK Centre for Digital Trade, and we also built an interoperability protocol between a platform and our solution. So we also think that, and we like CargoX a lot, not only can you have an electronic bill of lading residing on the CargoX platform, you can also take it out from there, and you will still have an electronic record that you can sort of send to anyone sitting outside of the platform. And this also enables, again, the platforms to become relevant in sort of a larger setting with other parties. Now I'm going to hand over to Ulf, and Ulf is going to actually go through with you what we actually done and how this actually works in real life. So I'm handing over to you, Ulf.
Just as you do that, Gunnar, I think Ulf's video, if you go to the participant tab at the bottom and go to panelists, you might be able to turn his video on. So does it come up with a panel on the right-hand side?
No, I only have in no.
All right. Can you pass back control to me then, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ulf, you're off mute, so over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual transactions we have done so far. Some of them prior to the law change in UK and some of them afterwards, as Gunnar explained. And it's quite amazing. I've been in this business more than 35 years as a CFO and as a banker in trade finance, and I've seen these paper stacks all my life, it seems. And our challenge is, of course, to get rid of those paper stacks. And during many years, there has been a focus on streamlining production and make warehousing efficient. There's been cost programs, there has been efficiency programs among corporates, but very little has been done at the end of the transactions. Suddenly you have a lack of visibility and predictability when it comes to the transit to the customer of the goods. You also encourage administrative cost because of this, because in all these transactions, you send a lot of DHL and UPS envelopes between parties. And of course, as we all saw during the pandemic, there were delays and bottlenecks creating demurrage for corporates. And I think that the shipping lines and also the warehouses made a lot of money on delays and bottlenecks. And then, of course, what we have seen among the corporates that we discussed, there is a risk of data loss and fraud. Many of the clients that we have dealt with have had fraud where emails with invoices have been hijacked and account numbers has been changed. So these are, of course, the negative by doing the paper trade that we carry out today, not to forget the ESG impact. Please, Brian, next one. So this is an example of transactions, and you don't need to read everything on the left because I'm going to explain it. Everything starts with, of course, a commercial contract between the exporter and the importer in emerging markets. That is number one. And in the past, we used a contractual law, but if it's in English law, that is not necessary anymore. And after that contract, the exporter is contacting the carrier and the freight forwarder for a proposal for a shipment. That is number two. There's some comments, probably the port might not be right. They want to change the cargo handling. So number three is feedback on the bill of lading between freight forwarder and carrier. And this is normally done, our experience is that it's normally done over email. And as you can see in this example, there's only one party that needs to be a customer of Enigio, and that is the freight forwarder. Could be the carrier as well. So someone of the issuer of the documents needs to be a customer of Enigio. The other parties can use the public digital notary portal, traceoriginal.com. So they don't need to onboard with Enigio. They can use this service free of charge. So what happens then under number four is that the carrier, after agreement, is issuing the original bill of lading, title document, to the freight forwarder or direct, depending on the transaction. The exporter log on to traceoriginal.com when they receive the email that they have a document. They add the invoice, packing list, certificates, all the documents they need to add to the transaction. You could see this as as the exporter is filling up a DHL envelope or a UPS envelope. And then it's obviously depending on the transaction. Either you send the documents under number 6 to the bank, to the advising bank, for further transaction to the importer bank and to the importer. Or if it's open account or cash against document without bank, it goes direct to the importer. And after the importer receives these documents in the same way, they need to split up the documents. And this depends on the local situation, really. Some of the importers allow the shipping agent to clear the goods using the digital bill of lading. And the other ones, documents might go to the customs and port authorities, like the certificate of origin and the invoice for custom clearance. So we have done a couple of these transactions, various shapes and forms and various markets. And our product has a difference compared to many of our colleagues in the industry, because I have to say that we need a lot of players in this industry. The carrier DCSA, the Digital Container Shipping Association, they target that 100% of the bill of lading should be electronic bill of lading 2030. Today it's barely 2%, and we are already into 2024 very soon. So we need a lot of solutions working together in a similar way like we showed with CargoX, that our solution is a very open solution where you can reach a number of corporates in emerging markets. Because you can imagine if you are going to onboard all these with a legal contract and a API integration using an IT solution, a project, this would take forever. But our solution, you could see, like one of my corporate clients said, this is like a digital DHL envelope. You could see it that way with a lot of advantages. Next one, Brian, please. So one of the transactions we went out and announced, and you can read more about this on our webpage, is where a freight forwarder in Germany, Fred Meyer and Son, organized transportation with the MSC and issued the bill of lading to the global trader Brunius and Company, which is a Nordic trading house within pulp and paper. And they added the documents, as I explained, the invoice, packing list, insurance policy, and certificate. And all the documents were digitally received by the importer in India, as well as Fred Meyer and Son in India, who released the goods with the carrier. And by doing this transaction in one day, they reduced 8 of the previous manual transaction days. And this was a problem for Brunius because the vessel normally arrived prior to the documents were in the port. So of course, besides the marriage that Brunius had to pay in India, this also enabled other things that reduced courier costs between all the parties, because there were 5 different couriers going with documents between the parties. And they also had problems with fraud, as I explained. And we can set this up very quickly. In this case, we set this up in 2 or 3 weeks. And the main issue was really to get everything done in India with the port authorities and accepting digital documents. So the lessons learned is that you need to have a freight forwarder and a carrier on board. You need to have a very, very interested corporate. And therefore, I think that these sessions that Brian is arranging is very, very important for the community, because lessons learned from UK is that they didn't include corporates early on in the process. So when the law changed, the corporates were sitting on the sideline. You need to involve corporates early on because they are actually the ones taking the active decisions. Next one, please. Yeah, and here I think we leave the space open for questions because we have roughly 45 minutes left. Oh, sorry, 15 minutes left. So I think the crowd, we need some 10, 15 minutes for questions, I think.
Well, thank you very much, Gunnar and Ulf. So if we can take your slideshow down and hand back to me. We have a question already from Mark Borton, who has wondered if we want to replace paper, which we all want to do, often this is something which is low inside the banks and corporates' list of priorities. What advice do you have on how we can break through this, especially at the SME level?
That is a very, very good question, and that's what I'm doing every day, every hour. So what you need to do is to find a few corporates that are sort of in the front line and are very, very interested. And if you can make use cases together with these corporates, then you can go to the corporate or to the carriers and to the banks and say, hey, we have this corporate who wants to trade digitally in this way. And this will move corporates and, carriers and also banks, I can promise you. Gunnar and I have several discussions with banks, but we wouldn't have them if we didn't have a very strong demand from the bank or the carrier. Because a lost business opportunity is making people nervous.
Yeah, just to add to that, and Mark, again, love your question. This is really what's it all about. I think that there is another angle to this, and this was really laid out by Pamela in the last webinar. If you don't know that the solution exists, you won't ask for it, right? So I think that there is also a very important task at hand, and that is really to make sure that people understand that there is actually a simple way to digitize your trade flows that wasn't available previously. First of all, because the law wasn't in place, and secondly, because there wasn't any technology available sort of to move from a standard PDF into a PDF that can actually be the single original for the bill of lading or the bill of exchange. So so a very good question, and I think it's all about making sure that people are aware that this is now possible, that it wasn't possible previously.
Thanks, Gunnar and Ulf. Can you turn your cameras on, or if you can, that would be great.
Actually, we can't. I can't now. Sorry about this, Brian.
I can now.
Oh, there we go. Well, we get half of you, one way or the other.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a range of questions if the audience doesn't want to jump in immediately with some things. But one of the things I guess the authorities are going to be interested in, and also the commercial users, will be around fraud and compliance management, etc. And you've pointed how your system can, if I understood it correctly, different users in the system can begin to attach other documents that are important to them. So it becomes a document stack. Have I got that right? And then I'll ask you about how do we know they're valid documents.
Over to you, Gunnar.
Coming back, yeah. So again, we are just providing a technology for creating digital sheet of paper, right? So our solution is not sort of a platform solution in the sense that we know exactly who is dealing with these documents, right? So the solution in itself just gives you the comfort that this particular document hasn't been changed or manipulated, right? So in the document, you will have the full audit trail on when it was created, when it was transferred, when it was updated with the signature and everything else. So this is what the solution does. Then it's up to the users to actually add what is needed in order to be able to rely on the document. And the key things that are available today are the issuer can add a corporate seal to the document, and once the issuer is doing that, sort of the credentials and the evidence around this corporate seal also becomes part of the document. So anyone downstream can actually check that this was actually issued by this particular party, as evidenced by the credential provided by the certified issuer of the electronic seal. So you will get all that. You will also get it for the electronic signatures, and there are different types of electronic. You can have a very simple one, or you can have an advanced one, or you can even have a very comprehensive one, a certified one. So and all of that can be put into the document, and then again you will have the evidence as part of the document on when it was created and with which method. So that's all available. So you will have a lot of comfort, and you will also be able to use your machines for actually reading this. Further down the line, now when we're looking at sort of all the work that is done by the Global Lay Foundation, there will be, as we see it, a possibility to actually add not only the identity of the person sort of issuing or signing a document, but also the authority. So when this becomes available, you can actually incorporate any type of lay credentials into the document as well. Obviously, you can already now put a lay code in, but then when you have the possibility of adding data and security and assurance around who actually signed and if they actually had the authority, this will be available. A very long answer. Yes.
Yeah, can you just expand on that? When will that be available?
It's not up to me to answer that question, and I think no, I won't go into that question, because it all depends on sort of what the corporates and banks make available in terms of what kind of authority they give to their individuals in the particular documents, and how that can be accessed and verified by downstream users. I know for sure that at least in Sweden, this is quite advanced, because you can go to the how do you call it, the company house, and you will have those details and they can be used. But I mean, it's different in every country, right? So let's see how they try to manage and how they succeed in managing pulling all this together. Yeah.
So I guess that draws me to another point around, as you point out, different countries are at different stages, and different parts of industry are at different stages. And as you've said, your system can cope with paper to digital and backwards, not ideally, but it can do it. That becomes an issue in the types of transactions that you've given the examples of, where something in Sweden may well have somebody with a strong identity, possibly government issued, etc., who's using the system. They create digital documents, but it goes to a final user in India who perhaps either isn't part of the same system, or has a different type of technology, or still requires, their government still requires things in paper. How do you see those, that digital equivalence across supply chains playing out in this practical sense that you've got a solution for?
Yes, I think that there are many strands to this one. So first of all, I mean, with the paper, you don't get very far with assurance, right? So actually, what we are providing is something that does exactly what the paper does, but you will get all the additional benefits. And obviously, if we take the legal framework around this, obviously the MLETR and the adoption of and being I mean, that the law actually recognizes that you can have an electronic record instead of something on paper. That is really important. But on the other hand, if you look at global trade as it's conducted today, I think 75% of all trade transactions are based on UK law. So basically, you already now have a lot of comfort since you're actually dealing on the UK law. So that's very positive, I think. The second thing around this is if you're conducting a transaction under the ICC rules, the parties can upfront agree on the EUCP, and then the EUCP gives you all sort of the comfort of the ICC of providing a framework for how to deal with this. So a lot of the pieces are already in place, and I think again, coming back to the point that if you really want to take out all the pain points that comes with paper, and you would like to have something that is actually better, you can start already now. That there is nothing actually stopping you. And again, the paper is not really that good, and I think we need to remember that, right? Additionally, also coming back to my previous point is around the fact that with your partners and with anyone in a particular trade chain, the really good thing with the trace original document is that if you print it, it will look exactly as a printed PDF, right? You will be able to read it exactly. So that's one thing. The second thing is that if you have the original or if you have a copy, you can send this copy to anyone, and they can actually read everything in a PDF reader. They can read all the attachments and all the cryptographic keys, and everything is readable, right? And you can also verify that you actually have a true and valid copy of the original. So not only the original in itself is very valuable, any copies that you share are also extremely useful. And again, coming back to the point that you will also get the standard again. So if Brian, you send me a copy of a trace original document, my machine will be able to read all the content. And if you put the standard that we agreed upon, my machines will be able to pick out all the key data points, which, and coming back to this, is also very important for any agency or anyone else that requires sort of updates along the trade chain. You can always share a copy, and the particular entity or agency or organization can decide if they want to use it, just read it as a PDF, or if they want to machine extract the data from the document, because it will all be there also in a copy.
And in these early days, you have to check that all parties accept the transaction. So, and that is fairly easily done, because the importer in, let's say, India, they have a freight forwarder who can check with the port authorities and the carrier. So in this case, it took only 1 day to get confirmation that they were okay with digital documents, and we are actually quite surprised. We are doing pilots in Latin America and in West Africa, and it seems that some markets are taking leap in development of digitalization. They go straight and they accept this, and this is also pushed by the carriers. People like MSC, CMA, SIM, Maersk, of course, they are pushing digitalization in the ports. That's a big project for them to make more efficient management of containers and ships.
Good. We've got a question from the audience around referring to originals. Does the solution have the ability or fuzzy logic to identify a document in the platform, and if it's potentially a duplicate, for example, an invoice?
Okay, so thank you. I'll jump on that one. So first of all, there is no document in a platform. That's the key point, because the document always resides with yourself, right? So Mark, in this case, you would have the document with you. So it's not sitting somewhere else, it's with you. You have the document. And you will know if you have the original or not. So if you have the private key that actually controls this latest version of the document, you will know that you have the original. If you then send a copy to me or to Brian or to anyone else, they can verify that this is actually a true and valid copy of the original, but they cannot do anything with it because they don't control it. It's only you that can do things to it by using your private key. You can add things to it, you can endorse it, you can transfer it. So that's your right, being in control and possession of the original. Yeah.
Thank you. So obviously this is a system which is developing in Europe and in London and the UK. How are you progressing with developments in Australia, and are you seeing any restrictions to the adoption of this system in Australia, or is there anything else that can be done in Australia to facilitate the adoption of systems like this?
Yeah, so thank you. Obviously, I mean, doing the same thing as the UK would help a lot, sort of just adopting the MLETR, because that will give the comfort to the industry locally that electronic records are as legally and valid and binding as paper ones. And again, this is quite a small change, but it will sort of give the possibility for the whole industry to move to electronic documents instead of paper ones. And it will fit very nicely into sort of the global moment. But then again, I'm coming back just to the fact that our solution is just sort of a digital sheet of paper. So there is nothing stopping anyone for using our solution as it stands today, and particularly in global trade, if you sort of base your transactions on UK law. That goes for documents of title and negotiable instruments, but then again, if you want to have a very safe and secure solution for any type of documents that cannot be manipulated, then you can also use our solution for other types of documents, like invoices or packing lists or insurance certificates or whatever you would like, where you don't need sort of these really key functions around the control and possession of the original, where that is not required, right? Yeah.
Mark's just come back with a clarification around recognizing things aren't necessarily documents, but is there data in the platform that potentially represents any duplication of anything that's already there? How do we reconcile those things?
I'm not 100% sure I understood the question. So let's see. I'll have a look at the question then. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. So this is a technical question. So actually, the system, or the ledger, if you wish, is just containing the identity of the document and also knows about the versions of the documents, and it also knows which private key actually controls the original. So you would never have a duplication. That is not possible. And if I go a little bit deeper into that question, so let's assume that I have the latest version of the document and I have the controlling private key. I can, as being in possession of these things, I can make a zillion copies of the documents, and I can make a zillion copies of the private key. And this means this is my privilege. This is what I can do. But then I think the Law Commission in the UK, they use this analogy of car and a key, right? So basically you have the car and you have the key, and you can make many copies of the car and the key, but there is only one party that can drive the car. So as soon as someone takes the key and starts working on the document, that is the only one that can control the record, right? So you have this notion or this concept of control. And this means that if I have my car key and I jump into the car and I drive away, everyone else that potentially has a copy of this car key, they cannot do anything because the car has drove away.
I think if you want further conversation around this, might have to be taken offline because we're running out of time. But it sounds like you've sparked some interest here, and people wanting to dive into the how does it work as opposed to what does it do. And I guess just my final question before we wrap up is, you've pointed to the UK and the ICC systems, which are all working at that global scale or regional scale for the UK, where there was industry initiatives. Is there something like that in Australia, or is there something which would be beneficial to create in Australia to help the adoption of technologies like you've exposed to us today?
Yes, definitely. I would very much encourage that, and it's been quite successful. It's been very successful in the UK, and I know for sure that the ICC in Germany is working along the same lines, and in France, in Finland, in Italy, and also we're very active in the Gulf region, especially in the Emirates, and they are also sort of running projects, making sure that the industry comes together, and also together with the regulator, just taking the adoption into those specific areas. Yeah, and of course the US. That's a different. Yeah.
I can also add that British Export Association jumped on board a little bit late, in my view. Not to blame them, but they came on board when the law changed. A lesson learned is that if you have bodies like Export Association in Australia, we could be available for information or presentation, or just for corporates to start to think in this way.
Great. Well, I think you left us with that message. You've given us a terrific oversight into the types of products which are available in the commercial world now and are increasingly being adopted. Thank you very much for that presentation, Gunnar and Ulf. I apologise for our technological difficulties through the presentation, but I'm certain if people are interested, they can follow you up, or I'm happy to put them in touch with that. As usual, we've recorded the presentation, so we have that for viewing at a later time. And thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you all to the participants, and we will continue on this theme in the next presentations over the next couple of weeks. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you all. Good afternoon, good night, good morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.